Good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Ashland Zoning Board of Appeals. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WACA. The town of Ashland, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, is currently following the guidance from the Ashland Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Public Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. To participate remotely, please use the link and meeting ID found in the agenda on ashlandmass.com website. The ZBA reserves the right to administer oaths, summon witnesses, call for the production of papers, cross-examine any person giving testimony during the proceedings, declare recess, limit debate, inspect the subject site or buildings during reasonable hours, and adjourn the hearing for cause. The order of business will be as announced by the chair. All questions will be directed to the chair, and any person wishing to speak, please raise your hand for recognition from the chair. And on Zoom, you can raise your hand physically, use the raise hand button towards the bottom of your screen. And if you are joining by phone, please press *9. Our Assistant Town Planner, Emma Snelling, will manage the mute and unmute button so that you can talk, and she will recognize your hand. We have a larger number of participants than usual, so we have enacted this policy to try and maintain some sense of order. Please speak slowly and within the context of the hearing matter, and the hearing is being recorded for the public record, and the ZBA does reserve the right to exclude any unnecessary, irrelevant, repetitive, or harassing presentations. With that being said, let's take a roll call of the ZBA members to make sure that we are all present. I, John Trefethan, am present.
I, Nathan Band, am present.
I, Brian Forrestall, am present.
I, Stuart Siegel, am present.
I, Chuck Green, am present.
Excellent. I will call the meeting to order, and we will go to the first item on the agenda, which is a continued public hearing for a special permit request for 11 Franklin Road. This hearing was opened on January 12th, 2021, and was continued on 2 separate occasions at the request of the applicant, Marissa Hannon, and we are here tonight to resume, resume the public hearing. At the initial date of the public hearing, the applicant made a presentation, and we suspended the hearing at that point to obtain an opinion from town council on a legal issue that had come up. We subsequently have obtained that opinion from town council. The opinion has been shared with the applicant, and I will now turn the matter over to the applicant to proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so Emma's been great. She's been sharing the information with us as she gets it, and we read the opinion. And ultimately what we're hoping for was a conversation with you, with the board, so you could kind of give us our thoughts on the direction this is heading in and what our options are at this point. If you'd like for me to share again kind of the details of the business, I'm happy to do that. I'm not sure if that's something you want me to go into again. But from what I understand, the issue was principal versus accessory use, the fact that there was already a home on the property, and that fact that that's a principal use, and then wondering if we could add a second principal use in. I've done my best to try to understand the way that the table is written. Principal use comes at the top of every category, even the category that has accessory uses beneath it. So it's a little confusing to me. So I guess, like I said, ultimately what we're hoping for is a little guidance from you guys at this point.
Okay, do any of the board members wish to have, restate what it is they're proposing on the site? I think we all have a pretty good memory, don't we, of the doggy daycare facility that they wish to operate. Let me just speak as the chair. I'm speaking now for myself. The board has not taken a vote on this or adopted this opinion as our official legal opinion, but the opinion from town council, we sought to see whether or not Ashland allows two principal uses on a particular piece of property. 11 Franklin Street is located in an RA district, and the principal use of that property is the home and buildings that are already on the property. The doggy daycare fencing area and use would be an accessory use. It would not be the primary use on the property, but it is not listed as one of the accessory uses in section 3.1G that are allowed in RA districts. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 separate accessory uses listed there, and a doggy daycare facility does not fit any of those categories. The question we asked town council was, does Ashland permit there to be two primary uses on a particular parcel? Some communities apparently do allow such a use in their zoning bylaws, but the Ashland zoning bylaw is silent on that. And it was the opinion of town council that Ashland only allows one principal use, and for 11 Franklin, that is as a residential facility. So that the daycare facility doggy daycare facility would not be seen as a normal accessory use that might come in under one of the other bylaws that we have. So it seemed, unfortunately, that it was prohibited. And again, the board has not discussed, we do not discuss these matters outside of the public hearing. We haven't discussed what we would do if we went forward. But as one of the sitting members on the hearing, I can tell you that my vote would be no. Unfortunately, that our zoning bylaw does not allow this use either as a principal use at this particular focus or for an accessory use at this lot. And in as much as the decision has to be, the board has to be unanimous to grant the special permit, if I voted no, then the special permit would be denied.
Okay.
And I invite any other members of the board to speak up and give us the benefit of your thoughts on this. I see no
Can I
one.
ask a couple questions?
Sure.
Okay, so essentially, in order to fulfill this item on the bylaw, the property would have to have nothing else on it. So essentially, like an empty lot would be the only way you could use this
Correct.
bylaw.
If it was an empty lot, your use would be a principal use.
Okay, so the only way that it would work is if you found an empty lot to use this particular bylaw?
You wouldn't run into the same problem you have now. Let me put it that way. I would think depending again, what does zoning bylaws allow as principal uses in the various different zones. Yes, as long as
Okay.
you were the principal use, you'd be all set.
Yeah, the problem we were running into is we found a commercial property prior, but it didn't have 5 acres. So that was the stipulation. And there really weren't any commercial properties that had 5 acres that we could use. So then we moved to residential, and now we're encountering this issue. So we're kind of stuck. My other question would be, this particular use that we're looking to do, it's different than a daycare. We're not putting a building in. We're putting up a fence and having small groups of dogs play. Do you think that there's anywhere else that we would fit under? Because we're struggling in Ashland. We can't use a commercial property. We can't use a residential property unless there's nothing on it and it's 5 acres, which is hard to find. So we're wondering if there's a different way we could go about this, some other way we would categorize. Would we not be considered a kennel? Because in the past, that's the way we've approached this, but maybe that's not the right angle.
Unfortunately, the ZBA isn't really designed to give advisory opinions in that respect. I know you've worked with Emma and with Peter on what you're trying to do and trying to find a location, and I wish you luck on that, but it's not really, I think, something we could give you advice about.
Okay. All right. I think at this point, what we would like to do is withdraw without prejudice. But I think before we do that, the property owners had a couple of things they wanted to ask. Is that okay if they pop in?
Certainly.
Okay. You want to take the floor?
Hang on one second. We're unmuted. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
No, unfortunately, under the bylaws, this is considered a principal use, not an accessory, despite it really not being a kennel. And we really don't have that definition that would support what really this is under our bylaws. And I think that's really what the problem is.
Yeah, I would entertain if it calls for 5 acres of land. Would it be a 3/4 acre piece of property would be acceptable, John, or the ZBA, or is it still written in stone for that 5 acres, even though it's not a daycare or it really doesn't fall under anything?
Again, that asks for, so I think, an advisory opinion, Robin, that I don't think the ZBA can grant. And I will concede that the difficulty I think everybody has had with your business proposal is trying to decide where within our zoning bylaws it fits, because
Right.
it's not really a kennel, and it's sort of in no man's land, as it were.
Right.
Uh,
That's
So,
definition.
but again, I don't think it's the ZBA's position to grant an advisory opinion on something like that. I mean, certainly there's more than enough, land if it was strictly an issue of acreage. But again, we get back to the accessory use or principal use problem.
So that's something we should reach
How
out to
would-
Peter and Emma about.
I'm sorry.
Those concerns we should reach out to Peter and Emma about. Questions, I guess, like you're
Oh,
saying. You
yeah,
want to get back.
absolutely. That's who I would, direct your questions to. They've always been very helpful and cooperative, I think, in meeting with property owners and business owners who need a special permit or to see how it fits. And if it can be done within the zoning bylaws, then I'm sure they will be able to help and try and find a way for you to accomplish what you'd like to accomplish.
Thank you, John.
Let me speak to Nathan and Brian, who are the other members that are sitting on this hearing. The applicant has requested permission to withdraw their application without prejudice. We typically allow that to be done, but we are not required to do that, having come this far from that.
I have no objection to that.
I'm fine with it as well.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion then to permit the applicant to withdraw their application without prejudice?
I move that the applicant be permitted to withdraw the application without prejudice.
And is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. I, John Trefethan, vote in favor of the motion.
I, Brian Forrestall, vote in favor of the motion.
I, Nathan Band, in favor of the motion.
Okay, that then I believe concludes the matter involving 11 Franklin Road. I wish you good luck in your endeavors.
I appreciate it. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate all the work of the town.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. It is now 7:16 p.m. The next item on our agenda was listed for 7:15 p.m. So we have absolutely perfect timing. Let me just get myself organized here. Okay, I will read the agenda item. The Ashland Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 22nd, 2021 at 7:15 p.m. to hear the petition of UA Senior Management LLC, care of Allen and Major Associates Incorporated, requesting a comprehensive permit per General Laws, Chapter 40B, Sections 20-23, to allow for the development of a 180-unit age-restricted rental community comprised of 156 rental garden apartments and 25 townhouse-style rental units. The development will include 2 4/5-story apartment-style buildings, 4 townhouse buildings with 6 units each, a clubhouse, 4 detached parking garages, an access road, parking area, amenities, and all supporting site features and infrastructure required to support the proposed development. The property in question is located at 0 Memorial Drive, Assessors Map 13, Lot 154, in the Rail Transit District. Parties wishing to be heard on this matter should appear at the time and place indicated above. Materials may be viewed by appointment at Town Hall during normal business hours or at, and there's a listed website. And for more information or to submit comments, please contact Emma Snellings at 508-532-7930 or at esnellings@ashlandmass.com. This is a matter that we expect will take multiple days of hearing, because as you can see, the submissions that we have to review are quite extensive. The planning department, Peter, our town planner, has had some conversation with the applicant to see if we can set out a structure for these hearings that allows for a more logical presentation and to allow everybody to give due consideration to the many issues that we have to consider. What we would like to do this evening is that this is a comprehensive permit under section 40B that is part of a local initiate program, which means that the applicant and the town have had certain discussions, and the select board and the applicant have entered into certain agreements. So I thought that before the applicant starts a presentation, that I would ask our town planner, Peter Matchik, to make a statement on behalf of the select board. That will be followed by the developer's presentation this evening, which will be a general overview of the project without going into great detail. Members of the board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, will then have an opportunity tonight to ask general questions in response to that presentation. And the public will then have an opportunity to ask or speak and ask general questions as well, not specific questions. At our next hearing, we are going to address issues that will be contained in the report of the town's peer review engineer, who is working on that report. The applicant has paid the town of money in a sum of money in advance to be used to hire a peer review engineer to review the proposal and the plans and to advise the Zoning Board of Appeals. That report has not yet been completed, and hopefully it will be before our next meeting. We'll address those issues at that meeting, again, with the applicant, the board members having questions, and then the public having an opportunity to ask questions or make comments specifically with those items. At the third hearing date, we will start off with the issue of transportation and traffic. Again, we'll have peer review of that, and the developer will address it as well as the board having questions, and then the public as well having an opportunity to comment or ask questions. If there are any, if there's more time and there are other issues to delve into, we will do so at that time. We think that will give a more orderly presentation for everybody, give the public an opportunity to understand what is going on, what the process has been, and to break down the issues. And having made that long-winded presentation, I will turn it over to Peter Matchik to make a brief statement. Peter?
Thank you, Chairman. So just as we get rolling, first I want to introduce myself. I am Peter Matchik, the town planner in Ashland. I also would like to take a moment and introduce Emma Snellings from the planning office, who is here with us tonight. As you stated, Chairman, this is the application of UA Senior Management LLC, care of Allen and Major. And here with us tonight is we have many people from UGC, which is the United Group of Companies. As you just stated, this is a local initiative program, and the development team here and the applicants have met numerous times with the Board of Selectmen. Without going into great detail, I would like to pass the baton over to Michael Herbert, Ashland Town Manager, to say a few words and tell us a little bit about how UGC and or UA Senior Management LLC has worked with the Select Board to help design the project that will be proposed here tonight. So Michael Herbert, can you please introduce yourself?
Right. Thanks, Peter. My name is Michael Herbert. I am the town manager. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context as to how we got here. Really, the origins of this application go back when the town actually purchased Lot 3 of the Rail Transit District. And that was a pretty complicated transaction, which allowed the town to purchase Lot 3. At the same time, it transferred, not from the town, but from the owner, a portion of Lot 3 to the YMCA. And then there were stipulations regarding Lot 2, where this project is located. And that stipulation was that it was originally zoned for 250 units of housing there. I believe it was age-restricted condo units. What the change was during that transaction was that it changed it to no more than 180 units of rental housing that was 62 plus. The important thing also as part of that transaction is it required the town to get back 20 to 24 acres of Lot 2 as open space. So in order to effectuate all of that and to make that happen, the applicant needed to work with the Board of Selectmen on a development agreement, which would outline where the development would be located and also some of the terms regarding this project before it was submitted. And so this has been a 2-year process. It has not been a light road, but I think it has been a productive road. We have worked extensively with the neighborhood, or we've tried to work extensively with the neighborhood to limit the impacts to that Apple Ridge neighborhood that abuts Lot 2 of the Rail Transit District. In fact, what we were able to come up with was a minimum of 150-foot buffer along the Apple Ridge property line with an average of 200 feet buffer. Currently, what exists right now is a 100-foot buffer. So we've extended the buffer through this development agreement. Another thing that was really important to us was the affordability factor and to have 25% affordable. That is one of the reasons why this is coming before you as a comprehensive permit. So because we have 25% of the units affordable, and because they are rental units, we will be able to count all 180 units towards our subsidized housing inventory, which gives us the opportunity to turn back unwanted 40Bs. It gives us more control over the planning process. Furthermore, instead of all 25% of those units being affordable at the 80% income level, UGC worked with us to make four of those units at the 50% income level and 5 of those units at the 60% level, making them even more affordable and open to more of our seniors. A couple of other factors in the development agreement that are really, really important is it stipulated some of the fees that were going to be paid, ensured that we had peer review fees. Another thing that was important is that there was a previous development agreement with the prior owner, which called for the payment on an annual basis of road maintenance fees. This development will actually codify that by paying their pro rata share of fees in perpetuity, which equates to about $20,000 a year. Again, I think one of the things I'm really, really proud of is the way we tried to engage the neighborhood at the very beginning and try to bring them in as part of this process. Again, Mr. Usolini, who's the principal of UGC, can tell you we've had plenty of conversations, some of them more kinder than others, but at the end, I believe we have a result that hopefully everybody feels like they can support. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Through the chairman, would you like to proceed, or would you like me to introduce the project a little bit further?
John, you're unmuted.
Who did you want to introduce, Peter?
Well, I just, I just wanted to thank Michael, and I also just kind of, before we open it up to the developer, I will state that this project is within the RTV district, which is the Rail Transit District, and it does meet multiple goals within the purpose of that bylaw when the town adopted it. number one is to promote multi-use housing and also affordable housing, taking advantage of its location within the town. And then I also would like to state that this project does meet a number of goals within the town's housing production plan. Obviously, I think, it may be time to open it up and introduce the applicant. Prior to that, though, I would like to also just highlight Lisa Mead. Town council is here on the call for both John and board members, but also for the general public. But with that said, I think it's appropriate at this time to hand the baton or microphone in this case, and I will hand it over to Bob Buckley, Attorney Bob Buckley, to introduce himself. And
Well,
Bob,
Before we do that, Peter, I think I need to just notify Attorney Buckley and everyone who's going to be sitting on the hearing. I will be sitting on the hearing, and the other members will be Nathan Band and Brian Forrestal. And Stuart Siegel and Chuck Green, our associate members, are here tonight and sitting in reserve in the event that services will be needed to step in over the course of what will be a multi-date hearing. And that being said, Mr. Buckley, apparently you will be the representative for the applicant, so we will turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Robert Buckley, Reamer and Bronstein. I have with me this evening Christine Hung from my office, Michael Cellini, who is the president and chief executive officer of the applicant, as well as Jeff Spatana, who is the executive vice president. From the technical side, I have Phil Cadero from Allen & Majors and Anthony DeFelice from Cube 3 Architects. As Michael indicated, and Peter, I think also, this is the culmination of a multi-year project. It began about 21 years ago. I know because I was there because I wrote the Rail Transit District bylaw 21 years ago. And the emphasis was to create an opportunity for housing and activate that area of town and take advantage of the new rail station that was constructed as part of the Boston to Worcester extension. So as people know who have heard me speak on zoning issues, I think good zoning takes a long time. It takes 20 to 25 years to effectuate good zoning. And this is a step in that direction because it not only serves a housing need, but it also serves a social need by providing affordable housing for seniors who wish to stay in the town of Ashland in their later years. Before I begin and talk about the process, I would like to just take a moment to thank the staff of the town of Ashland. I grew up in the town of Ashland a long time ago. I raised my family in the town. And to come back to the town now and see the professionalism of the staff over the 2-year period that we have had to discuss this project and work through the kinks and get to the point where we're here this evening presenting what I think is a very good project for your consideration is a real testament to the town, the management of the town, and the professionals who staff the town and do the work of the town on a daily basis. So I do want that to be I want to say that up front before they take a pound of flesh from me going forward, but they've been nothing but professional, and I compliment the town on that. As Michael indicated, this is being done as a 40B project to help the town achieve its subsidized housing inventory to eliminate the prospects of having a unfriendly 40B come in and not have the degree of control you'll probably have through this process. And that's why it's called a local initiative program. It's a subset of the 40B, as I refer to it, a subset of the 40B process allows the applicant to come forward with a project, seek the support of the select board of the town, and to go to the state for approval. As you all know, the state has to issue what is called a project eligibility letter for a Chapter 40B project. We went to the state about 6 months ago with the support of the select board as to I want to distinguish. That's not the approval of the town. It's just an indication that the town acting by and through their select board could support this endeavor. We have to come for the permitting through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that's why we're here this evening. As part of that process, we prepared an application which included a development agreement, which your distinguished town council was involved with, as well as the town, that solidified and codified many of the issues that we had uncovered and discussed over the last 2 years. So there is an agreement in place that will dictate how this process goes and what the obligations of the applicant, if this is approved on a going forward basis, including, as Michael indicated, fees for peer review as well as maintenance obligations. The process entailed some discussions with the staff as well as input from the boards and the town consultants. Just for your edification, we are in receipt of initial comments from the peer review consultants. We've had ongoing discussions. We feel confident that over the next few meetings, we'll be able to address those comments and concerns and hopefully present to the board a satisfactory response on those issues. So we're well ahead of where we normally are at the start of a project, because we, as has been reiterated this evening, we've been working on this for a good 2 years. Before I have an overview of the project, I'd like Michael Cellini to provide the board and the community with a brief overview of what the applicant, of who the applicant is, and what they've done, and the experience that they bring to the table and to the town of Ashland. Michael, through the chair, if the chair is agreeable to that.
That is perfectly all right. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Chair Trefethan, for this evening, as well as the other zoning board members, Town Council Lisa Mead, and Town Manager Michael Herbert, as well as the town board members that are on the meeting tonight. Steve Mitchell, I see, is here. Mike Herbert's correct. It was a collaborative effort for the last couple of years to work very hard and very disciplined on a design for a project that is a 180 unit senior housing project, active adult, 62 plus, with all kinds of lifestyle amenities, as well as multiple housing options, being that we're delivering both townhouse rental as well as garden rentals and also affordable housing. Peter is correct that it does support and meet the housing production plan and a lot of those elements. And we worked very hard and with the neighbors to pull the project away from the Apple Ridge neighborhood, to tighten up the site plan, and looked at multiple iterations of the road. So we are very excited about coming to the Ashland and the town to do our first active adult senior housing project in the town. There's a huge need in the town. There's over 17,000 seniors within a 5-mile radius of this property, and we will bring much needed housing option to the town. By way of a little background, I am the president and CEO of United Group. I'm also the owner of UA Senior Manager LLC. The United Group's been around for over 49 years. We're based in Troy, New York. We've been doing senior housing for over 40 years. We've developed and owned and operated a little over $3 billion worth of housing. We're currently in 7 states. We've done over 18 projects in the active adult space and the senior space, and we have an award-winning lifestyle program called SUN that won a national award as the best lifestyle program in senior housing through the National Association of Home Builders. So we're very proud of the product that we deliver in our team. We are long-term owners. We develop and oversee the construction, and we operate and manage the property ourselves. So we're very excited about this opportunity to be before the zoning board and continue the process that we've spent with the town board to get the comprehensive permit application and bring the project to fruition. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would like to point out that a very important point of Michael's presentation is that there's accountability. They're not here to develop, flip, and move on. They are owner operators, and they bring a long history of successful operations, and as Michael indicated, a national reputation for their product and their operations. So they will have accountability to the town. So you'll know who to go to and how to get the answers you need. So I think that's a very important aspect to this project and to this developer. With that, I'd like, with the chair's permission, to ask Phil Cordero from Allen and Majors to provide a brief overview of the project as it stands today from a design standpoint.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates. And I echo a lot of what my predecessors have put forth in terms of this project, and we're happy to present it here with you tonight. We, similar to Bob, we have history on the site as well, and we've worked on this land in a number of different capacities over the last few years with the previous ownership group and certainly now with UA Senior Manager, and we're happy to work with them. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to share my screen so I can share graphics to the rest of the board.
Certainly.
Okay, just one moment, please. Okay, and I can confirm, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that you're able to see the screen that's up presently?
I can.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Great. So thank you for the opportunity. As Mr. Buckley pointed out, we are the civil engineers on the project, and we have worked on it for a number of years with a number of folks within the town, and we're very appreciative of that long-term workshop history. So I will abide by the rules and follow with a brief overview of the design and open it up to any questions that the board members have. And then we can certainly defer a lot of the technical aspects, as you alluded to, Mr. Chairman, to either the peer review process or the second meeting in the meeting series here tonight. So what I have on the screen here at present is just the overview to get the board very familiar with the land that we're speaking about. It is Lot 2. It is part of the Rail Transit District, as the predecessors before me have mentioned. It is on the westerly sideline of Memorial Drive, which was formerly MBTA roadway. And you'll notice by the gray shading that it is a wraparound parcel to the Cirrus Apartments project that was permitted and constructed several years ago. Our land wraps around it. As part of the preparation for development within the RTD parcel, the board may recall that the MBTA road, Memorial Drive, was rebuilt several years ago. And during that rebuild process, it contemplated development along this westerly side of the site to include the apartments, which included a rebuild of portions of the drainage system, utility upgrades, including sewer, water, electric, gas infrastructure, and also the construction of a multimodal path. So when Mr. Buckley refers to the long-term processes that have taken place here and the 2 years that we've been at this particular project, it certainly is longer than that. And a lot of the elements, the seed elements, have been in place for quite a number of years. As I switch over, excuse me. And just to give the board now the graphic overview of what the site looks like, it is completely undeveloped. It's approximately 38 acres and again wraps around the Cirrus Apartments. And the 38 acres is largely centered on the southerly side, and that's where we will focus our area of development. And as we do that, we will work towards keeping the development as condensed as possible to work within the parameters that the folks within town have given to us, to be good neighbors, to be sensitive to the area in which we're asking for the development opportunity to exist. The screen that you see, the green lines that divide the project right now, divide the property, those are the Rail Transit District sublines. The parcels exist portion in RTD Zone A, and a portion of RTD Zone E. Along the, I'm just going to bring up the highlighter for a moment. And along the southerly property line is RTD Zone F. And this is a prescribed 100-foot buffer that was written into the Rail Transit District codification 20 plus years ago for the benefit of the residents, the single family homes along the Apple Ridge neighborhood. And where Mr. Herbert, the town manager, referred to at his introduction of an increase of the buffer, this is where that will manifest itself. And I'll show that to the board as we move through the slides. When we started the project, we had a number of site constraints that we needed to deal with. The first one to us is obviously the neighbors on both sides of us, both the Cirrus Apartments and also the single family homes along Apple Ridge. The other element that we had to contend with is there's drastic grade change across the site. And this was the large driver to the development program for us. And by reference to the board members, approximately 100 feet exists between the high point where the cursor is highlighting and Memorial Drive MBTA roadway. And that certainly was the bus driver in terms of how we could fit the programmatic elements into the site and also recognizing the need for the buffer. Luckily, we were able to work through a number of workshop sessions with the town members that helped guide us in that process. And when I say workshop, we went through iteration after iteration after iteration, and a lot of contemplation as to how this site can come together, factoring in grade changes, programmatic elements for UA senior manager in terms of townhome units, in terms of, in terms of garden apartments, in terms of separation to Apple Ridge, in terms of how that grade change can work. And we were able to successfully navigate that with the guidance of the town to the program that's in front of you here this evening. And as part of that, we also recognized the buffer along the Apple Ridge and used these as guiding principles. And the lines that are shown along the bottom, and hopefully the cursor follows through the Zoom meeting, is the default 100-foot buffer. And then the request from town staff to increase that buffer to at least a minimum of 150 feet along that southerly property line, and then provide an average of 200 feet and shift our roadways as far northerly as possible and preserve as much of the natural woodland as we can. And those were the underlying guiding procedures for us. And we worked those to develop this concept plan. And this was presented to the selectmen back in the fall of 2019 and through various workshop sessions. And we're now here in front of you with this refined plan. And this is what we'll present to you as the 180 development units. Now, to frame the context of this plan, certainly the Cirrus Apartments are located just to the north of us and they're fully constructed. The 180 senior residential units are located on the 6 primary buildings of the site. We have 4 townhome buildings, which each have 6 units within. And then we have 2 multi-story garden rental apartment buildings. And those are comprised of 4-story on the courtyard side and 5-story on the Cirrus apartment side. And that's driven by the grade change that we have across the site. And what we factored into the development program through the workshop is to really utilize the grade to not only maximize the buffer that we can provide to the Apple Ridge residents, but also to fit the program, the townhomes and the taller story buildings into areas of the topography where the heights, the roof lines, they'll all be very contextual to the neighborhood. And what I mean by that is by having single family homes along the southerly property line and then an increased natural tree buffer that's then supplemented by vegetation on our end, we will then transition to a townhome style unit and then transition into the higher, taller buildings, the 4-story again on the courtyard and 5-story on the backside where it fits into the elements of the Cirrus Apartments. We'll also have 4 detached buildings located on the 4 detached garages located on the northerly portion of the site to provide amenity-based parking. And central to all of that will be the clubhouse zone, which will be the leasing and activity area for all activities here at the Arbella. And behind there, we will have an amenity-based area with to be determined amenities, including bocce courts or toss across or shuffleboard or other program elements that Mr. Ussolini referred to at his introduction that are all hallmarks of the senior product that they're doing throughout the country. We'll also have an additional a garden area to the north side of the site that the residents can use as part of container gardening or other planting elements. Now, the red area that the board may witness here, the dividing line through here, is what's intended to be the dividing line between what the development program will retain as approximately 18 acres of land, with the remaining 20 being turned over to the town for open space purposes to do with as they see fit as part of the development agreement. So the remainder of the land that wraps around Cirrus Apartments that's not shown on the screen is obviously part of that 20 acres. As we bring the program forward and we talk into all the particular elements, we are providing certainly adequate parking for the product that we're proposing in terms of 1 parking space on surface for each apartment, 2 parking spaces on surface for each townhome unit, in addition to covered garage spaces at each townhome unit, and then also covered garage spaces through the 4 detached garages that I referenced on the north side. And all of these upper elements are all pedestrian friendly. These are all accessibly compliant. So all of the seniors that will inhabit the Arbella can certainly navigate the entirety of the site. We want them to feel connected through all elements, which again are centrally located around the clubhouse. Perhaps one of our most defining features from a civil design perspective, excuse me, is certainly the long elongated roadway that enters into the site. And this is a necessity of our development in that in order to navigate the 100 feet of grade change that we do have under the natural topographic conditions, we needed to elongate the roadway to find the perfect balance between the elevation, the upper terraced plateau of the development and continuity with the roadway without making this an excessively burdensome earthwork operation. We have no desire under this project to be a gravel pit. We are not an excavator exercise. We will be conducting the earthwork necessary to support the development of this site with minimal export from the property based on organic stripping and unsuitable soils that we'll have on the property. And this roadway allows us the opportunity to do that by absorbing some of the grade, getting us up to the upper terrace as quickly as we can within safety and design standards, and balance that earthwork equation that we have through here. Also, in doing so, it allows the buildings, especially buildings 4 and building 5, which are 2 of our townhome units, because they're tethered to the connection of this roadway, they actually sit down. It may be fairly difficult to see, and we can certainly get in the weeds on it when we get to the civil design meeting next. But because of the high elevation adjacent to the Apple Ridge folks at 390, these townhomes actually sit approximately 75 feet lower than the Apple Ridge residents. And what that affords us is the opportunity to visually screen these townhomes, not only to hide the facades of the buildings, but also the roof lines themselves can be obscured through not only the natural vegetation, but additional vegetation that we're prepared to plant as part of the application. And then these townhomes, again, those will obscure the high buildings, excuse me, the taller buildings that are 4-story on the courtyard side. And it will direct the view shed corridor from all of our abutters that there is no direct interaction, there is no direct line of sight. Everything is modified to lessen the effect of the development in terms of the enjoyment of the property along Apple Ridge. And Anthony DeFelice, who represents the architect from Cube 3, is certainly able to speak about the view shed corridor and the building architecture in terms of height. To touch upon the last few moments of the civil site design, we certainly will have a full complement for review by the board and certainly the town's peer consultants, GCG and Haley and Ward. A completely contained stormwater management system which will meet or exceed all required regulations in terms of the Massachusetts Stormwater Standards and the Wetlands Protection Act. We have also sat down with the DPW director and his assistant director to review the water and the sewer infrastructure. And while we have a great grade change on the property, we have capacity within the water system for the project, but will support the pressures needed for the project through the use of an on-site booster, very similar to what Cirrus Apartments had done many years ago. We also had opportunity to sit down with the fire chief and the police chief and present this plan to them and certify to them that it meets all of their safety standards and their needs for visibility, circulation, access, NFPA fire codes, hydrant placement, and all the other accoutrement that you'd expect us to meet for a project of this size. We will also present through the package for further review. We do have it adequately lit with LED lighting throughout the project. LED will be downlit. It will be shielded to minimize any light spillover that occurs on any of the other properties. We also have varying light standards throughout the project. And we use that to create a pedestrian feel where we want it to be adjacent to our buildings. And where we have more of a parking feel, we'll create taller light stances so we can have adequate security lighting for our senior residents that will take occupancy here. And then the last element will be certainly to provide a fully detailed and complemented landscape plan for the site. So the area outside of the development program, obviously for our purposes, will remain natural. But as part of our landscape complement package, we'll certainly provide increased landscaping at the Memorial Drive connection. We provide screening of our stormwater basin at the low side of the site, also along Memorial Drive. We'll provide enhanced landscaping, our entry landscaping, when you reach the upper terrace of our site as the gateway, as the introduction, as the welcome to the project for those living here and also visiting here. But we'll certainly provide enhanced landscaping also along the tree line, where we've identified bare spots in the view corridor. Those will be plugged with additional plantings of multitude of varieties, things that will remain green year round. So evergreens, deciduous, shrubbery, a combination of multiple species that can accomplish lessening of the views and maintain a lot of what the residents have become accustomed to. We've had a number of different conversations with your peer consultants. And we're confident that the questions that they raised through their first peer review can be adequately addressed. And we're prepared to do that after this meeting concludes, so we can get a revised set of plans in front of the board and also the consultants for further review. We've also successfully met with the town's Conservation Commission. We did a request for determination of applicability for this developmental area, and they issued a negative determination, which for the board's edification means that no further permitting is required through conservation as a result of this program. We continue to refine the site through correspondence with town departments and town heads and other town staff, and we'll continue to do so. They've requested through peer review consultants some additional on-site information, and we're prepared to engage immediately in getting some additional soils detail and traffic information. And all of those details will come out as we advance our discussions here with the board. So at this point, what I'd like to do is advance the presentation to Mr. DeFelice, who represents Cube 3 in the architecture, so he can provide the overview of the building design, and then we can revert back to the board for questions, please.
No, I'm not muted.
You're not, okay.
Just want to confirm you guys can hear me.
We can hear you fine, Mr. DeFelice. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. As my fellow team members have said, this has been a really, collaborative effort over, culmination of years here. So just to introduce myself, Anthony DeFelice, for the record, from Cube 3. Next slide, please.
A slight delay, Anthony, excuse me.
That's all right. Thanks, Phil.
That's it.
So this is basically a view looking from the main entry as you enter up onto the site. To the left is the townhouses that flank the left side, have the street front presence. To the right is building 1, push back slightly to open up a lot of green space, activate the front edge with tenants and public would be able to utilize the space. The clubhouse is basically a focal point as you basically get up and enter towards the site. It's what you see. It's a destination. It's kind of this beacon, centrally located, piece in the forms of all the buildings. Next slide, please. So this is the front of building 1. It's perspective looking at the main entry. You can see on the bottom right, there's a key plan for each slide, just to familiarize location based on the site plan that Phil had represented. This is a 5-story, 4-story split, slab on grade, wood frame construction, so type 3. 76 total units in this building. There's amenity space that supports the building on the first floor. Basically allows residents to utilize outdoor gathering space in front. There's a second floor community balcony that's really an exciting space for seniors to gather, look out, meet with one another. Sidewalk connecting over to the main street edge, but also to the amenity space, which is a really important, form of architecture that each and every building will need to support the shared amenity spaces that are going to be provided here at the Arbella. Next slide, please. This is a view looking at building 2 entry. So similar to building 1 in form of architecture, and also stepping back and allowing this outdoor space, these gathering areas, the second floor roof deck that's shared amongst each, tenant within this building. So allowing that outdoor activity, really active, used day to day, overlooking to the back side of the clubhouse. So a large gathering area, plaza space. So the activity of the clubhouse kind of spills out. There's all those activities inside the clubhouse that we'll utilize, on the nice days in the back there. And as mentioned, activity spaces such as pickleball, bocce, courts, cornhole, all those types of activities that the seniors, the active seniors, are going to be utilizing, in the nicer days. So this is a similar to, like I said, on building 1, it's 4-story split, type 3 construction. There's 80 units in this building, and there's amenity support space on the first floor. There's garden space that tenants can utilize. There's also bike storage. So a lot of amenities on the lower floor of these 2 buildings. Next slide, please. So this is a cross section in a short way through either building 1 or 2. They're pretty much the same in means of when we're talking about the grade change from one side to the other. So as we've been mentioning, that 4-5 split, you can see where the left side of the building is basically that open courtyard space that I just showed in the previous perspectives. So that gathering space, the second floor deck, that people can utilize looking out into that space. And then you have a full drop of a whole floor to get to the backside, and that's along the right side, along the Sears apartment side on the northern edge. So this is the drive aisle location, the entry for tenants, parking, connection space outdoors, the standalone covered parking is also along the back. So it's kind of, sheltered along the back there, kind of separating this public versus private space. So this section kind of helps understand also the building height concern that we've really looked into reducing the height of the roof condition. And this has been through discussions with the planning groups, so that, basically reflecting, the condition and the view corridor that's been mentioned, from the concerns from over at Apple Ridge residents. Next slide, please. So this is a perspective looking at the front of the clubhouse. So this would be your entry arrival, the outdoor plaza space created to create this really active front, really large openings to, see the activity, feel connected to, this outdoor space, visitors parking and vehicular entry, flanks on the left side, this spine pedestrian corridor that connects between building 1 and 2. It's this gathering area, it's this meeting area, lots of outdoor activity. This building really kind of ties the architecture together. It's using the similar forms, similar, subtlety, textures and tones. And this is just a single story wood frame, slab on grade. So it's a type 5 type construction, amenity space within it. Next slide, please. So this is a view looking at either building 4, 5, 6, or 7, the townhouse. The designs are very similar. There's 6 two-bedroom units on each. Each have their own garage, front door entry from the street side. And on the back, there's patios, there's private patios that have a, really buffered landscape area. So it's a little bit of this private versus public sense. These are, close enough to the street to kind of activate the street edge, give it that presence. And it also, has that sense of this small town community, and far enough connection to the clubhouse, but has this different feel that, the younger active adults, potentially could have these townhouse varieties. They're a little different than the actual garden style apartments. And these are 2-story, slab on grade, wood frame construction. So these are also type 5 construction. Like I mentioned, there's 6 units in each building and there's 4 different kinds of them. All basically the similar style to the one that's shown here. And that should be it.
So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes our overview. Would be happy to entertain any questions from the board at this time. With the acknowledgement that we understand that the subsequent meeting will be a deeper dive into the technical issues of the site civil and also on the architecture.
The devil is always in the details, but thank you very much for that overview presentation. I would ask my fellow board members if anyone has any questions based on this. Again, questions limited to a sort of an overview nature rather than the nitty-gritty. And perhaps we could go back to the screen of all the participants rather than the background. There we go. Nathan, Brian, Stu, Chuck, any questions of any of the either Mr. Buckley or presumably Mr. DeFelice, or I'm losing the
the other guy, Mr.
The other
Cordero.
guy. There you go. There you go. He's.
The other
I
guy.
know he's in here. There he is, Phil. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, Mr. Cordero. I knew you were
worries,
there
Mr. Chair.
someplace. I didn't think you'd run away. And there's Mr. Ussolini as well. Any questions, Brian, Nathan, Stu, at this point?
I don't have any questions, but it was a very good, nice presentation. I appreciate the effort you guys put into that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'd
Mr.
like
Slim,
to,
you're raising your hand, so I'm guessing you have something to say.
yeah, I just want to add and close with the design of the apartments are very spacious. You know, the one bedrooms, we have a mix of 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, and the 1 bedrooms range from 700 square feet to 1,100 square feet, and the 2 bedrooms go from about 1,100 square feet to 2,200 square feet. We take a lot of great pride in when we do our senior housing that we just don't provide shelter, and it's not age restricted rental housing. We have a lifestyle program called SUN. It's a 7-prong model where we do all kinds of activities and programming in the clubhouse. When you, as we get to the future meetings, you'll see the floor plans and the layouts of the clubhouse and the activity areas where we have bistro and we have great rooms and we have a movie theater and you know, arts and crafts and a salon and massage. So we work with you know, the services in the town to take care of the seniors that live with us. And this is going to be the baby boom population that is going to be that'll be living with us and living here. So, you know, we do education and lifelong learning programs. We do health and wellness programs, aqua aerobics. We have an indoor pool inside the clubhouse. And again, it's a whole program that we've done, and we're very excited about bringing it to the town of Ashland and their seniors. I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. Mr. Ussolini, let me ask you this. Have you done any other projects in Massachusetts?
We have not. We've done projects in Massachusetts in the past, in Springfield, years ago, back in the 80s and 90s. Okay, but in the, you know, kind of Boston MSA, this is our first, and we plan on doing many more.
Okay. So no questions from other members of the board at this time. Thank you. So, yes, Nathan.
Just one quick question. All of the amenities sound nice. I was wondering if there's been any kind of idea of what kind of staff would be on site there. How many employees you'd look at having there?
We will have probably between 5 and 6 staff members there, between the office staff as well as the on-site maintenance staff. We'll have a manager, assistant manager, leasing, activities director, and then we'll have a full maintenance staff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? If not, Emma, why don't we open this up for questions or comments from members of the general public? And again, I would ask each of you to, if you wish to be heard, to either click on the raise your hand button or wave your hand on the screen. Emma will make note of it, and she will unmute each of you in turn as we go forward. And again, I emphasize questions about the overall concept of the project and not the specific details, like what kind of carpet is going to be in the bedroom or things like that. Emma, you don't look like you're getting a lot of volunteers that want to speak.
Correct, John. I do not see any hands, either physical or virtual.
Okay. Well, going once, going twice.
Now I see one. Okay.
Okay.
Peter Dana, you can unmute.
It's Mr. Dana. Good evening. If you have a question, if you would ask me whom you would like it directed to, and we will then have that person entertain your question.
Well, I was at the final presentation in the fall of 2019 where Phil Cordero presented the plan that had been hashed out by, I guess, a special group where they came up with the final version of this. And during that presentation, he said in terms of the construction that they would have to go all the way back to the property line, including the supposedly the buffer zone to in order to construct the project as shown on the screen. And furthermore, then Board Selectman Mitchell and I forget who the other member was talking about the pathway for the public that's going to connect all the other pathways, like the network of, I don't know what it's called, but so all of this is going to be happening in the buffer zone. And I don't really see how there's going to be a vegetated, forested buffer zone between the two projects, between the clearing of the land and the proposed trails. So I'd like to hear what everybody has to say about that.
Mr. Cordero, before you answer, Mr. Dana, let me ask you this. If you'd be kind enough to identify yourself with your name and address. I should have asked you that before you asked your question, and I'm getting rusty at running these hearings. I forgot to do that.
My name is Peter Dana, and I live at 41 Wilbur Drive in Ashland.
Thank you, sir.
In the Apple Ridge area.
Okay. Mr. Cordero, do you want to address the issue, the question just in general?
I can, Mr. Chairman, and if necessary, I'm happy to reshare the screen, but I think the short answer to answer Mr. Dana's question is there were a number of iterations of the plans, and some of them, as I flashed up through the slideshow, were more aggressive than others in terms of how we managed earthwork and what the encroachments were. But the message that we heard loud and clear, repetitively and voraciously from the town in defense of the abutters is we need to do better in terms of buffer zone management, in terms of clearing of vegetation. So what I can assert through the chair to Mr. Dana is the plans that are provided for now, we have a 100-foot buffer that is considered the RTD-F zone. That is untouched. We are not altering that in any way, shape, or form. Further, the conditions of the development agreement have increased to that buffer along that same property line from 100 feet to 150. So 50 feet more than we actually have to provide under the code. But in addition to that, because of the nature of the site plan, in terms of everything that occurs along that southerly property line, we have an average of 200 feet of buffer along there. Now, the 150 foot of buffer is natural. It's unaltered. It is what it is out there. We have no buildings that are closer than 200 feet to the property line. So that delta between 200 feet and 150 feet, that is grade transition because of the steepness of the site. And where we can, we will supplement the top of our slopes with landscaping. I think if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just share the screen one last time. I just think it'll reinforce what I'm saying. I'm on the design plan now, and we can again talk about the specifics of this as we move forward in our applications. But that buffer zone that we're referring to, the RTD-F zone, is this area here, and it continues on. That's 100 feet. And we've increased that minimum buffer, so it's an additional 50 feet to the limit of our tree work. And where we can, we've really increased that deeply into the site, and then it transitions down via the slope behind the backs of the townhomes. And the symbology that's on this plan, as soon as the plan regenerates, the symbology that's on here of our landscaping is the intent to plant at the top of the slope. So where we actually end our tree line, to plug plant everything through there to really maintain as dense a visual buffer as we can. But distance-wise, we are greater than 100. We're greater than 150 in all areas with an average of 200. And there'll be additional landscaping planted along the top of that slope, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Mr. Chairman, Phil, during construction, that is not going to be intruded upon.
That's correct. For confirmation, Mr. Chairman, as Mr. Buckley pointed out, that will not be intruded upon. And the first thing that happens during construction of any of these projects is an establishment of what the preserved tree line needs to be. And that's staked out in the field by survey. And that's locked down. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Mr. Buckley anticipated the question I was going to ask, so I no longer need to ask it. Any other public questions or comments at this point?
Mr. Dana has another comment.
Certainly. Yes, Mr. Dana.
Well, we didn't hear from the town about the proposed, I know I had spoken to Michael, the developer, and he had a fear too about what is the intent of the town to do in that buffer zone. Are they going to build a open space pathway and, you know, running around the two neighborhoods, or you know, that was the intent as it was left last time, and we were all told to shut up and sit down, and it didn't leave a good feeling with me at all, to be honest with you.
Well, with respect to what the town might do with land that it is going to be deeded from this project, that is not a matter that is before this board as part of this plan. That would be a matter for the select board to consider. And I think your question should be directed to them once this project is determined, either with a positive vote or a negative vote by this board. But that's not something that I think we as a board can address what the town will do with the buffer zone.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from anyone here?
Yep, Stephen Mitchell can take the floor.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, welcome. Is he muted?
Yep. Oh, there you go.
All right, here I am. Thank you. Steve Mitchell from 5 Newcastle Road. I also serve on the select board. And I just wanted to quickly respond. I know it's not germane to the application before you, but just to confirm the comments from Mr. Dana relative to discussions about the potential for a trail through the buffer zone. That has hardly been determined. You know, what Mr. Dana is referring to is the Upper Charles River Rail Trail. That is very much in process. There is a variety of potential routes that the committee is reviewing. So, you know, I can't speculate on what's going to happen at this point in that buffer zone. It would be unfair to do that. I guess my only other comment is I don't recall the, you know, shut up and sit down part of the discussion, but be that as it may, I don't believe that, you know, we have any specific plans for work in the buffer zone at this point in time. So thank you.
Thank you. Again, I don't want this meeting to get hijacked into an area that we, as a board, don't have jurisdiction over, really. Any other questions from the public?
Peter Dana has his hand raised again as well.
Yes, Mr. Dana.
Maybe I was a little strong with what I said to about the meeting. I apologize to Mr. Mitchell, and it's just it's an emotional thing. It's our neighborhood, and I'm trying to do my best to protect it. That's all.
You're doing fine, Mr. Dana. Speak up at any time. Ask any questions you want. Anyone else? Okay. Well, we've reached the point where we have accomplished what we wanted to accomplish with the first night of the hearing. and we will need to continue the hearing to the next time when we will meet and hopefully have the peer review completed, and we can enter into discussion in more detail about the civil engineering components of this project, which are obviously much detailed. I have been told, Mr. Buckley, that we may not get the peer review completed report from the engineers in time for us to consider it within 2 weeks, which would be normally when we would next meet, which would be 2 weeks from this Monday. And it would seem to me that it makes no sense to try and schedule the meeting for 2 weeks only to have to reschedule it or continue it because we don't have the report or haven't had time to consider it. I would suggest continuing the hearing 4 weeks, which would be to March 22nd, at which time it will be spring and all of the snow will have melted.
Mr. Chairman, would it be possible to consider, you meet 2 weeks from tonight?
2 weeks from tonight, if...
Well, let me suggest this. Could I suggest that if we don't have the peer review back by, shall we say, the Tuesday of the first week in March, it would be the first week in March, right? So if we don't have it by a week from tomorrow, that we will send a letter in continuing. If we do have it, we'd like to proceed and have a discussion.
I can understand your desire. If I understood Mr. Cordero correctly, there are plans to meet this week with the further plans to meet this week with the peer review engineer. And it strikes me that if that's the case, that getting a final report from our engineer within a few days thereafter is not terribly likely. I mean, if you insist on doing it in 2 weeks, we will do it. But we may just have...
You put us on at the end of the agenda, and if we don't have it by a week from tomorrow, that way if it's at the end of the agenda, if you have other items, it's not going to clog your agenda, but we will, if it hasn't been submitted for review by the board by Tuesday the 2nd, is that right?
Excuse me, yes, that'll be March 2nd, Attorney Buckley.
Okay. Nathan and Brian, you all right with continuing this until March 2nd with the understanding that if we do not have the report by, did you say next Monday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, that we will continue it until the following meeting?
I think, can we, Mr. Chair, this is Lisa Mead, Town Council. I just want to clarify the dates because I think there's a little confusion on the dates. I think your next meeting would be March 8th. Is that correct?
It would be 2 weeks from tonight.
Right. So what Mr. Buckley is suggesting is that if he doesn't have the report by March 2nd to the board, then he would continue the March 8th meeting, but he would like to be continued to March 8th.
No, I understand.
Okay.
And I understood that. I didn't say it very articulately, but that's why you're the attorney and I'm just the board chair.
I need to say something tonight, right?
You're earning your money, not to worry.
There you go.
I consider it a good evening when you don't have to say anything, Lisa.
Okay, Nathan and Brian, are we all set with that?
I have no issue with that.
With that understanding? Okay.
Yeah,
And I will send a letter to the town confirming that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Attorney Buckley. Nathan, Brian, Chuck, or Stu, does somebody wish to make a motion to continue this matter to our meeting on March 8th And as far as the time is concerned, I know we have something else on, so how about continuing it to 7:30?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, John Trefethan in favor.
Aye, Brian Forrest, all in favor.
I, Nathan Band, in favor.
Hi, Chuck Green in favor.
Hi, Stuart Siegel, I'm in favor.
Okay, the motion then passes. So the matter is continued until March 8th at 7:30 p.m. And thank you all very much for your presentation this evening. And we look forward to seeing you either on March 8th or March 22nd.
Again,
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your time and consideration. And to the staff of the town of Ashland, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Okay,
Good evening.
good evening.
One final ask. Could everyone please stay healthy?
We will do our best. Okay, moving on as for the board, moving on, that concludes the public hearing on the comprehensive permit for tonight. Moving on to the next item, a minutes review and approval for the February 9th, 2021 meeting. Did those minutes go out, Emma?
Mr. Chair, my apologies. I did not send out the minutes. So if we
Okay.
can table that to the next meeting.
We certainly can. That's not a problem. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't overlooked the email from you. Any staff updates or administrative matters to discuss?
At the next meeting on March 8th, besides the continued hearing for Zero Memorial Drive, the board will also be opening a public hearing for a special permit application at 135 High, and I will be distributing those materials this week.
Okay, excellent. Business is picking up.
Yes.
Okay, well, unless there's anything else under staff updates or administrative matters, the chair will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, fine. I was afraid we all were just going to stay here for the rest of the night. I, John Trefethan, vote in favor.
Aye, Brian Forrest, all vote in favor.
I, Nathan Band, vote in favor.
Chuck Green, vote in favor.
Stuart Siegel, vote in favor.
Very good. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.